Summer is finally over. The weather outside is a lot rainier, it's colder, the days are a lot shorter, and the leaves of the trees are starting to fall down. Halloween is coming very fast as well, and it's definitely time to start watching spooky and horror movies. So this is my Halloween catalog. This is what I love to watch during Halloween. This is gonna be a list, there is no particular order, and remember that everything I say is correct. So the first movie that I want to talk about is Knives Out. Knives Out is about this detective that was hired to solve a crime in a family. And I am putting this film in this list because it is definitely slowly becoming one of my favorite films, and it takes place in a setting that is very, very autumny, if you will. The whole setting is a huge house in the countryside full of little artifacts and things. It feels very spooky, and it takes place during the fall, I think in New England. This movie is definitely like playing club with your friends during a rainy day, staying inside.
I'm Detective Lieutenant Elliott, and this is Trooper Wagner.
We just want to ask a few questions.
We understand the night of his demise, the family had gathered to celebrate your father's 85th birthday. How was it, by the way?
The party? Pre my dad's death? Oh, it was great.
The second movie that I want to talk about is Monster House. Monster House is an animated movie that it's about these three characters that have to deal with a very complicated situation in their neighborhood, obviously dealing with a monster house. This is this kind of animation that is perfect for children, but it's also done in a way that adults and everybody can enjoy it because it's actually smart and it's actually well done. Dialogue is good, characters are good, the plot of the story is very well done as well, and the animation and the whole setting is also very fitting for this season because it takes place during the fall. Actually, it takes place during Halloween, and the main characters are children, so it has this whole vibe of children going to an adventure in this spooky vibe of Halloween. So it is definitely not scary, everybody can watch this movie, but there are some aspects of spookiness into it. Spookiness being like horror themed, but not precisely horror.
Every neighborhood has a house with a secret.
Awesome kite.
The third movie is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, which is also the third movie in the series of Harry Potter. I am picking from the Harry Potter series, particularly this one, for a few reasons. First of all, it was the first movie of the series that got a little bit more grown up. The first two movies were made a little bit more for children. It had simpler themes, it had a more straightforward plot. Everything was either black or white, if you will, but in this one the world itself becomes a little bit darker. So in the past movies we had Hogwarts and the Wizarding World, which was basically perfect, and there was something threatening it, which was basically Voldemort. But in the third movie it gets more complicated than that. The world itself develops more complexity, and that brings a lot into the series. I also put this movie into the list because I think it works very well as a standalone. Maybe one of the only movies from the Harry Potter series that works as a standalone, and that's because it is self-contained. The villain for the movie is not really Voldemort, so you get this very self-contained story that actually has an ending, and it's perfect. We have to talk about it because this movie has what I would call the quintessential Halloween song. The song is called Double Trouble. You probably know what I'm talking about. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, do yourself a favor and look for this song immediately on YouTube. It's called Double Trouble, and it's perfect for this season. I listened to this song in repeat. Now the fourth movie, this one is a very special for me. It's Muppets Haunted Mansion.
Welcome to the home of fear and fright, where not all guests survive the night. The lucky souls will live to tell, and those who don't will rot in.
What's the matter with you? You can't say that. This is a family show.
What are you doing?
I love the Muppets. I love the Haunted Mansion, which is the Disney ride that you can find in Disney World or Disneyland. And you mix them both together and you get a very entertaining story and very Halloween theme. It's literally a Halloween theme movie, but it's also very well done, and it creates a vibe that it's actually funny, but everything is set up in Halloween. This is also the perfect way to explain what spooky is and not scary, because it has this whole vibe that it's very mysterious, but it's never horror. Like, it's basically a movie for children. But same as Monster House, even if you are an adult, you're gonna enjoy the movie very much because it's very well done. Also, an extra, if you have been to the ride in Disney World or Disneyland, the Haunted Mansion, you're gonna find a lot of little things here and there that you're gonna recognize from the ride. And I feel like that's one of the best parts of this movie, that there are layers to it. Even if you have never been to the theme parks, that's fine, you're gonna enjoy the movie. But if you have been to this ride, you are gonna definitely recognize not only like the physical set of the movie, but also the movie itself is like a ride, and it resembles very much the ride in Disneyland and Disney World. Okay, the following one is not precisely a movie, it's actually a show, but I still add it here because it's such a short show that you can just sit down and watch it in one go. And if Double Trouble is the quintessential Halloween song, this series is the quintessential Halloween series, and it is Over the Garden Wall. After the first seconds listening to the intro song, I was completely convinced that this was such a valuable series. So it is only a few episodes, and each episode is 20 minutes. The story of Over the Garden Wall, just very superficial and no spoilers, is about these two brothers, and they are stuck, they are lost in the woods, and they are trying to get home. But everything is of course more complicated than that, and they get into these very interesting adventures. It's a very well done series, and it really goes to places that you would never imagine. It really feels a lot more simpler, and then it develops into something actually deep and very entertaining, and even a little bit dark. Now, everything that I've mentioned before, all these shows are basically spooky. These are all the things that you can watch. Being alone, you're not really gonna get too scared, it's just fun. And the ones that I'm gonna mention now are definitely some that I can personally not watch alone, or I have to make several stops when I'm watching them alone, because they can actually be a little bit perturbing and they can actually make me scared. So let's go. So we have The Haunting of Bly Manor, The Haunting of Hill House, and Midnight Mass. I'm putting all of these Netflix series together because these were all directed by Mike Flanagan, which is, for me at least, one of the best horror directors in the last years. These three series are more or less like American Horror Story in the sense that they use the same actors, but they are definitely different stories, and it's way better than American Horror Story. And even though they are very scary at some points and actually perturbing, you stay there for the characters. And this is not very common in the genre of horror lately. The value of this series is the story and the rich characters, and how the characters feel like actual real people and not stupid ones that are just trying to get killed. These ones, you actually care for the characters, you want to see what happens to them. The way they act is very relevant and accurate to the situation they find themselves in. And if you're a fan of classic horror books, you're gonna find a lot of stuff here that you are gonna be familiar with. So The Haunting of Bly Manor and The Haunting of Hill House are based loosely on horror books, like very classic horror books and movies and adaptations. But the Midnight Mass is completely different.
We tend to dislike mysteries. We feel uncomfortable not knowing. The more that we know, the less we bend, the more brittle we become.
Midnight Mass, it's actually the only one from these three that was both written and directed by Mike Flanagan. Definitely, the Midnight Mass out of these three is my favorite one, and that's the one that I recommend you to watch, because I know this is very time consuming. So if you have to pick one of those, watch Midnight Mass. now we finally reached the last movie that I'm gonna mention. This is, to be completely honest, one of the most disturbing movies that I have ever seen, and not only because of the visuals of the movie, but also because the story takes you and drags you down. It really, you cannot stop looking at it. It's like a car crash. You cannot look away, and the story is so well constructed. There are so many little things that build up this whole vibe that is so scary and so disturbing. This movie is Hereditary, but this is the most scary movie I have seen in the last years. It's also one of my favorites, and it's definitely perfect for Halloween if you are into that. Get yourself some friends and get very fucking scared watching this movie, because it is great and it is very scary.
I recognize you from your mother.
What? Sometimes I swear I can feel them in the room.
Now I have two extra recommendations. If you like horror and if you like movies, I am actually gonna release my own horror film on Halloween, the 31st of October. So if you're into that, subscribe and watch it. I'd be very happy to have you see it. And as a bonus, if you don't have time to watch all the movies and series that I mentioned, I want also to recommend two podcasts that you can basically listen to everywhere. The first one is The White Vault. The White Vault is such a well-told story, and I personally have this particular love for horror stories that take place in a completely frozen environment, because it feels like the whole environment itself is attacking you, and it's almost like being in space. You're locked into these spaces, and it feels very claustrophobic. So I really recommend you to listen to The White Vault. It's a series of diaries, and you listen to the diaries of these people in this situation, and you start to understand the story. I was just too scared to listen to this podcast alone at night. So it's a really good podcast, and it's very scary. And the second one that I want to mention is lore. Lore is the equivalent of storytelling next to a campfire. It's amazing. Each episode is basically just a deep dive into a myth or a legend or a place that it's believed to be mysterious, and it's very easy to listen to. The stories are quite short, probably 20 minutes, and the host does a very good job telling them. So enjoy these two podcasts if you don't have time to watch the series. Thank you for watching this video. Subscribe and like this video if you did like it. And yeah, happy Halloween, people. Enjoy this month, because this time of the year is just amazing and we have to actually use it. So happy Halloween.